Hi everyone, I'm doing another outside video. This is a Happy New Year one. I'm actually saying it verbally rather than just putting it up on screen like I did last time. Got a slightly different backdrop this time too. I'm just looking towards the tree that's got the pink flowers. It's quite attractive actually. I didn't even know it flowered until about a month or so ago. It's a pretty hot day and it feels a lot more pleasant being out here than inside, so there is a slight breeze here, so for expediency purposes I thought, look, I'll shoot this outdoors. The other thing too is I've had a few little technical glitches with the DJI camera I bought as a substitute for the old GoPro I had. It does tend to cut out occasionally, and that's a bit of a worry, and goes into a different mode. So I've got to be very careful with the way I use it. You can sort of hear when it's stopping to record, so it hasn't been a huge issue, but it is a definite annoyance, and it shouldn't be happening. It may have something to do with the larger card that I have in the camera, because I haven't used a card that's quite as big a capacity as that in the GoPro, and that may be causing some issues. So it may not be fair to just point the finger at the actual camera itself, but you know, with technical things like this, it could be a lot of different issues. Anyway, I'm still waiting on my my plumber to come round. I've got a bit of a swamp in the front yard, and they were possibly going to come round this weekend. It's Sunday now, and I don't think there's much hope of that occurring. I have to wait a bit of time for the next test to start too. In Sydney it's starting on the 5th, I think, which is Thursday, so that's quite a delay. And I've been watching a few videos in Thailand where people are really doing it tough because the government sort of left them up in the air if they're running small businesses like bars or accommodation or what have you. Very hard for these businesses to plan and to make things work. And in my own situation, I'm waiting until Tuesday the 4th of January to see what they come up with, the Thai government, about their policy on travel, whether they're going to continue to just have the Phuket sandbox, in which case I may decide not to go. But it'll also be about the time, Wednesday's supposed to be a stinking hot day here on Wednesday, and I might think, well, bugger this, if I do get my visa back through the mail in my passport, I might decide to go for it, just so to get away from the heat in summer here, because it is definitely warmer here with the house than it was with the flat, where I had that breeze that made a huge difference because it was elevated and got the southerly breezes. I'm getting a little bit of a breeze here today, but it's nowhere near as refreshing as that one because it went straight through the flat. Whereas here it's a bit more of a bunker, and even though I'm opening up all the windows, it still isn't cooling down the place sufficiently. Anyway, I also saw an article I put up here just as a couple of pages, just outlining from the Daily Mail how bad things are in a particular province in China regarding their approach to lockdowns. If we ever complain, well, people do complain about the lockdowns in Australia, in New South Wales and Victoria, but boy, nothing compared to what they're doing in China, where they actually, it's very much like the Cultural Revolution. They're parading people through the street and shaming them for breaking COVID rules. And that is so reminiscent of Mao's Cultural Revolution, it's not funny. The only area I'd say that's a possibility is probably in Victoria, because I think Dan would probably think that that's a training exercise, and he might, hopefully he's not reading the Daily Mail because it might give him ideas. One can only hope not. But I also got this really good article, another article actually, in the online Australian, news.com.au. That is usually got some pretty crappy articles. So this one was actually an opinion piece about the National Cabinet, and pretty well covers areas that I've been thinking about, how frustrated I was at the way that Scott Morrison really allowed the states to basically draft their own policies after they'd come to supposed consensus, when they go off and do their own thing anyway. And I think he's been really weak. And if you look at this article, I think that the writer of this article pretty well reiterates that point, and that there was an agreement at the beginning that they were going to not go with an elimination of COVID policy, but a suppression of COVID policy. So in other words, controlling it, learning to live with it to some extent. But as we know, certain renegade states such as WA have taken it a lot further than that. And WA is like a hermit kingdom now. It's just ridiculous. Other thing that's interesting about that article is that it says that the people that went into ICU, which are the ones that we really need to be concerned with the most extreme cases, the figure that really stood out in this particular article is that 70% of the people going into ICU in New South Wales hadn't been vaccinated. Now, you know, I'm not against vaccines. I've had a couple of vaccines because I'm in a high risk group, but it does illustrate that if you are going to get COVID, it does give you some level of protection from really getting hit really hard. Obviously, the minority of people with vaccinations are going to be hospitalised, and the minority, even smaller group, are going to go into ICU. And that's a good thing because, you know, I totally agree with governments trying to make sure they can cope with the demand for those services, and that in that respect they need to control a virus like this. But I do believe that the Omicron variant is not as bad as the others. It's prolific, sure. It transmits throughout the population, but the results aren't as devastating. Although apparently there have been 1,000 people in New South Wales hospitals because of it, which is quite a high number from what I can gather. Now, I don't know if that's absolutely straining the resources of the hospitals. It must be a bit of a burden, but whether they can cope with that figure, I don't know. And we can only hope that this is the worst of it, because we're lucky in that we've had this strain during our summer, so we shouldn't get it as bad because of that, apart from anything else. And it should hopefully blow over fairly soon. You know, I was talking to my cousin who's a nurse, and she said they're coping okay at the moment, but you know, she said probably need to wait another month to see what's going to happen. And you know, time is important to know where we stand. Initially, we had no idea we first had COVID, and we needed to basically batten down the hatches. And I supported that initially, but once we realised it wasn't quite as dire as people were making out, then I thought we could have learnt to live with it. But that hasn't really happened. And according to this article that I have flashed up on screen, this opinion piece, he says that we could have done this 18 months ago, and sure, still got the vaccinations and what have you, and kept the serious caseload down so that the medical infrastructure could cope, but there was no need to cause such a disruption to the economy. I mean, places like, in the States, places like New York and in California are being hit really hard with restrictions, usually by hypocritical politicians like Gavin Newsom, who basically breaks their own edicts, and de Blasio, who was the mayor of New York, is finally gone. Thank God for that, although I don't know if his replacement's much good, but yeah, I think he's got aspirations of becoming governor of New York. What a lunatic. He's delusional, as I've heard people say online, so yeah, it's pretty bad. Anyway, I've been pretty housebound the last week. I really haven't gone out. I've been meaning to go down to the beach. Today would be a perfect day because it's a bit sultry, and it's only going to get worse, so I think it'd be a good idea to skate down the beach mid to late afternoon and get a bit of relief with the sea breeze. There's a little bit, like I say, there's a little bit of a breeze here, but inside the house is much more oppressive. So, yeah, that'll be my plan. Hopefully the plumber will turn up in the next few days because he's going on holidays to Port Douglas after that, and on Thursday, I think. So, fingers crossed he makes an appearance before then, because I really need to get that leak in the front yard sorted. It's a bit of a swamp, and that's not great. So I haven't done much, to be honest. I've had plans, but I haven't put them to fruition. It's a bit hard to motivate yourself during summer here. It's a bit draining. I don't know how people work outside. I suppose if you're young and you've got energy, but it'd still be hard yakka in this sort of with this sort of humidity. Anyway, that's pretty well. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention too. Apparently, there was a nasty stabbing took place at a New Year's party, and it was actually in Cairns. And that's the last piece of news that I have to pass on. Not great news, unfortunately, but and guess which suburbs were involved with the people with doing the kniving? It was the M suburbs. So the M suburbs in Cairns get a bad rap yet again. Although some of them becoming a little more trendy than they were and going up market a bit more, but maybe there's still a bit of work to be done there on the social level. Anyway, that's about it for me. As I say, I hope everybody had a great New Year's. I don't have any hangover at all. I didn't indulge, and I had a very quiet one. As a matter of fact, it was very quiet here. The only thing I heard around the area was fireworks displays, which usually go off I think went off about 9 o'clock. I could hear them, I couldn't see anything. It might have been at Trinity Beach, and that would explain why I couldn't see them, because I'm just a bit too far away from there, but I could certainly hear them. So anyway, that's fingers crossed 2022 is a better year than 2021, which was a shocker. I mean, I had a few personal highlights moving away from the flat to the house and all that sort of thing, but overall it's not a great year, I think, for a lot of people, and hopefully there'll be a little bit of sunshine coming up this year. We can only hope that things finally get better. I guess it all depends on the response to COVID, but we also have huge amounts of debt in the economy that need to be paid off. We've still got Brandon in the White House, and that's a worry for another 2 years if he lasts the distance physically. I mean, he's already lost it mentally, but physically he's sort of just hanging in there. Mind you, it would be interesting to see America run by Kamala. That would be something else. A diversity hire, if ever. That would be pretty amazing to see. And if the popularity's low now, God knows what it'd be like if she actually got real power. Oh, I mean, she's got a finger on the she'll have a finger on the nuclear button. I mean, it's bad enough with Biden, or his mind is having it, but anyway. And we've got an election coming up sometime in the next few months as well. And we may well have Albanese as our Prime Minister, the way things are looking. Yes, interesting times ahead. Anyway, please comment, place your comments on this video if you have anything you'd like to say, and please give me thumbs up or thumbs down. And you know the other thing to do. I won't even mention it because I keep harping on it. I won't even say the S word. So just think about it, okay? All right. Anyway, have a good day, and I'll stay in touch.